First email says, I'm stuck with something here. This is somebody who's been doing Real Love for a while. She says, at our family meeting today, she abbreviated it FM, and I was wondering if she worked at a radio station. At a family meeting today, I expressed that I don't like it when people make jokes at my expense, which is a fairly common thing seen in society. My daughter made one a couple of days ago. I brushed it off. My husband made another one today at my expense. And I was trying to be aware of not to be too victim-y about it. And I simply said, I prefer that you not tell jokes at my expense. My husband got offended and pointed out that I was justifying my oversensitivity and that no harm was intended. And then, of course, because he didn't listen to me, I felt wronged and unheard and unloved by his reaction. And I told him that he was being defensive and attacking. So everybody pulled out their swords and stabbed each other in the family meeting. I'm sure that was memorable. So I'm sure that you caught on by now that that was probably not the best approach. So telling your husband that he's wrong doesn't work. Really kind of never has. And in a family meeting when his kids are watching him, it pretty much never will. You could say something like this instead. Not giving you the exact words, but you'll get the drift. I might be overly sensitive. You might be right about that. And I believe that no harm is intended. So look, you've told him that he either is right or might be right about 2 of his points already, as opposed to telling him he's wrong. But I still prefer not to be the subject of jokes. For example, if you like peanuts and I'm allergic to them, it doesn't matter whether I'm overly sensitive, because by definition an allergy is a hypersensitivity, or that you didn't mean any harm. What matters is that insisting on putting peanuts in my food is not acceptable. It's still hurtful. I have a choice about whether I like people to joke about me or not. Some people just don't like to be the butt of jokes, whether it comes from when they were little and their parents made fun of them. You know, they don't really have to justify why they don't like to be the butt of jokes. They get to say, I don't like jokes about me. They get to say, I don't like jokes about whatever, one-eyed people or tall people or racial jokes, or people get to have their preferences. They really do. She continues, I'm doing my best to remember that you love me and that whatever my husband says may not always be true. And I recognize the potential urge of power that I would get if I complain about this to him. So I'm not going to do that. But I am needing help to shift my feelings. So remember this rule, not just you, but everybody who's listening. A joke is funny only if both parties agree that it is. Now, it may be hysterically sarcastic or attacking or mocking, but that's a different thing. A joke's funny only if both parties agree. Even stand-up comedians who are professionally funny understand this and agree. They try out new material with audiences wherever they go. Stand-up comedians travel all over the country and they try new material. And they will write a joke, or their staff will, that they think is hysterical. I mean, the staff falls on the floor throwing up. They think it's so funny. But if the audience doesn't laugh, guess what happens to the joke? They throw it out. So it's got to be funny to the teller and to the audience. And, you know, you can get away with it if you're Robin Williams or Don Rickles, but pretty much you don't get to make fun of somebody at their expense, even if everybody else in the room laughs. So it has to be funny also to the person you're teasing. New subject. Here's a lady who says, when my newlywed son and his wife come to visit and they bicker and fight in front of me as they often do on almost every imaginable subject, what is the loving thing to do or say? So I'm going to make this a two-stage answer, and you'll see why in a minute. First stage, which is changing your question a little bit. If somebody you don't know whines or complains or acts like a victim or whatever, without asking for your opinion, this is somebody you don't know especially well, that's called none of your business. If your kids do it, whine, complain, act like victims, whatever, to you, even if they're adult kids, their complaining is the initiation of a dialogue, whether they call it one or not, because they are addressing you. Pay attention. By definition, it's a dialogue. The breakdown of the word dialogue is di, which is Greek for two, and log, L-O-G-U-E, which means speech or speaking. So it's two people speaking. So if they complain to you, they have initiated a conversation. And you get to participate. They have actually asked for your opinion, whether they realize it or not, because they didn't choose to talk to a tree and deliver a monologue. They talk to you. So you get to talk to them about whatever you want. The effects of whining, how victimhood is going to kill them, how it would be more effective to be loving, whatever, because they chose to involve you. Now we're going to change the story a little bit so you understand that if they talk to you, you're involved. But now we're going to go to your question. Second stage. Your adult children fight in front of you, but not really to you. So you needed to understand stage one to get to this one. If they fight in front of you, although they haven't invited you to a dialogue, they are affecting you. So that does involve you. Again, it's not conscious on their part, but they've invited you to participate in their little play by doing it in front of you. If you do a play in front of an audience, you have invited the audience's opinion. And that means you're going to get booed if you screw up. It means you're going to get applauded if you did a great job. But if you do your little play in front of an audience, you have invited their input, even if there isn't a sign up front that says, we want your input. But here the rules are a little bit different. So you could be a little more polished and kind. You need to give them a chance to uninvite you to the argument. So you could say, for example, so here are your two kids, your son and your daughter-in-law, and they're fighting as usual in front of you. And you say, you put your hand up and you go, hello, stop for just a second. I have a brief announcement, much like they do on an airplane. I don't let people smoke in my house because I don't like the smell. It affects me. They're smoking, but it affects me. It pollutes the whole place, in fact. I don't let people pee on the floor because it affects people without their permission. Now, pay attention, because in a similar way, if you two want to fight with each other in front of me, you're affecting me. So now you have a choice. One, you can stop the fighting, like right now, which would stop the noise and emotional pollution. I got a brief kick out of that phrase, emotional pollution. Well, I really liked it. Kind of a little self-entertainment thing going on. Or number two, your second choice, you could invite me to help you solve this argument so that you don't have to continue to pollute the emotional airwaves in my house, or frankly, in yours. This really does work. And it gives you an approach to anybody who does any kind of activity in your house that affects you, whether they address you directly or they don't. New subject. This is a mother who says, I took my son, Michael, who's 15, to a chiropractor for his ADD at the strong recommendation of a relative. He didn't want to go. In fact, he was angry from the start. He was defensive. He denied that he needed the help. So here's a kid who has ADD. Clearly, you wouldn't have taken him to the chiropractor if it was under good control. And he's denying he needs the help, which proves all the more that he does. But he finally agreed to go. And after the examination, before we could get the results of the exam and what the doctor recommended, he left the building and he went and he hid far away from the office. He went and hid, like as in, down the street in the bushes. This is a 15-year-old child. That's a lot of fear, honey. And whether he has ADD or not, he's not emotionally all together. The real question is, as he was fleeing the office, the question that pops to my mind is, what were you doing? How is it that you could be unaware? The appointment was for him. How could you be so unaware of him that he managed to leave the office and you didn't know? 15-year-old kids are kind of hard to miss as they pass through the door. You might have stayed in closer contact with him as during his examination, which I assume you were present for. Paid closer attention to what the chiropractor was doing. I don't know. So I finally found him, and he said the chiropractor was crazy and a quack and a scammer. Okay, so here's a 15-year-old who knows whether a trained professional is a quack or crazy or a scammer. So pretty obviously he just doesn't want to be there. And he didn't want anything to do with it. I felt badly because the chiropractor was actually helping me look for Michael outside. I'm having a hard time picturing this because I had an office for 20 years and I'm trying to picture me helping a mother find her 15-year-old child who'd left the building. That would not have happened. So anyway, he was being nice looking for the kid and he had a patient waiting for him. So after I paid and left, Michael texted me where he was, and apparently he only told you the crazy and quack and scammer thing after he texted you where he was. And I picked him up, and he wanted to argue with me about it in the car, and I told him I would talk with him about it later because I was getting pretty emptied out. Honey, this is exactly why he pulls stunts like this with you. Pay attention. To emotionally entangle you and keep you from teaching him what is acceptable. And it's working. So he screams crazy and quack and scammer and stops out of the building. And so you're so occupied with trying to placate him that no discussion ever happens about what went on in the office and what this kid needs to do to change his behavior. His behavior couldn't be controlled. You wouldn't have taken him there. You put up with his behavior. You let him get away with acting really immature. 15 years old? And then you put off talking to him. This kid needed to have a talking to right there on the curb before you ever got in the car. He's a master at manipulating you. You can read between the lines that he does this. Actually, you can just read the lines and tell that. You said the only thing I've said to him so far is that if he has a problem with me, he should try to resolve it with me first instead of going to his dad, who will support him in his rebellion. Whoa, you're easily distractible. So instead of having a conversation with this kid, you talk to the kid about his father. So now we've changed the subject. We've gone from his behavior, which has been labeled ADD, which very likely isn't. So the real subject is behavior. Then you let him change it to the chiropractor. Then he ran away. Now you've changed the subject to his dad. This kid owns you. It's like you have a ring in your nose, and he's got the chain, just jerking you around. And you've told him that he should try to resolve it. With a kid like this, the word should's never going to work. You can tell him what the consequences will consistently be if he doesn't resolve things with you. But should, I'm guessing you've told him what he should do, several hundred times. And by now he's learned that you're just joking because nothing ever happens. So you can tell him the consequences if he behaves badly, like stomps out of the office or doesn't talk to you. Significant consequences. Loss of his cell phone, loss of his video privileges, whatever. But should means nothing to him. You continue. At the appointment, he admitted that he hasn't taken his antidepressant for a month. A month. So you have a child, unbelievably, who's 15 years old and who's so out of control he can manipulate you at will, and you let him be in charge of taking his own antidepressant. On the mental ward, they don't tell the patients, you take your medicine when it's the right time to take it. In a hospital bed, they don't tell the patients, now take your medicines as you should. No, they put them in a little paper cup and they watch the patient as they put it in their mouth and swallow water, and then they have them stick their tongue out and they check around their tongue to make sure that they didn't stick it between their cheek and their teeth. This kid has just went cold turkey on an antidepressant, some of which can cause horrifying side effects if you just stop them. Some of them, in fact, cause suicide if you just stop them. You said, I need to talk with him about that. Also about how he just left the building and went off to hide. How was I wrong, and how and what should I discuss with him about this now? Well, how are you wrong? You were everything. So what do we do now? You have to talk to him in detail about his unacceptable behavior. All of them. Leaving the building, not taking them, all of them. Until he can describe how it's unacceptable and isn't just parroting your words. See, just reading this, I can tell that you give him lectures. And you give him lectures, and then it's over. He hasn't learned a thing. Until he can say it back to you in his own words, he's not even listening to you. And until you start requiring it, he's never going to. Just stopping his meds, he potentially threatened his life. Running out of the building, completely unacceptable. The way that he treated you when you wanted to talk about it, unacceptable. It means that he's done this kind of thing with you many, many times, or he wouldn't have gone so far this time. So this has been going on for a long time. And he has to believe what he's telling you, or you just pour on the consequences that he hates most. Otherwise, he'll think that you're a joke. After I wrote that, she wrote me back and said, well, he already does think I'm a joke. No surprise there. So a question occurred to me. I said, just for fun, what family rules do you have that he understands? Answer, none. So here's a 15-year-old boy who has been told that he has ADD. The likelihood that he actually has it is really tiny, because what the kid has is a complete lack of direction. He has a complete lack of parents. And so this kid is raising himself. He's taking his own meds. He's making his own medical decisions. He's doing actually whatever he wants to do. So it's not ADD, it's lack of everything, lack of learning. And you're going to have to start somewhere. I'd memorize the parenting book and actually implement it instead of just reading it as an intellectual exercise. That's where I'd start. And then you'll probably need considerable coaching on this subject. This is from a woman who, only as recently as maybe 3 months ago was homeless, jobless. The best job she'd had up to that point was kind of part-time, working at a marina, a place where they store boats, fix engines. Everybody's been to a marina. You know, you walk down the pontoons and you jump onto somebody's boat, usually somebody else's. And she decided to do something about her life, which is really cool. So we talked regularly, like every day. and she decided to be responsible for her life. So she started looking for jobs, and one of them was to be the manager of a marina. Not the same one she'd been working at part-time as kind of a slave, but manager of a marina much like that one, where she would have quite a number of employees underneath her. And she said, I'm not ready for this. What do you got to lose by applying? You know how to do half the job, don't you? She said, yeah, probably. I said, well, the other half, other marina managers would be only too happy to show off and tell you what they know and show you how brilliant they are. So you can figure out the other half. So she got the job. And so now she's a relatively new supervisor, has multiple employees, and she writes and says, I am just plastered with a massive smile right now. I am so grateful for the gift of love I have in my life. This is at the workplace she's writing this. Fun stuff to hear. She said, I saw myself today being demanding and pushy, earning praise, being dismissive inappropriately, and also having some moments of honestly loving and teaching people today, all in one day. I mean, what a day. I feel like a new shoot in a really bright green of spring growing into my new life and the new me day by day. Now, I knew she could work at a marina. I didn't know she was a poet. This is beautiful. A new shoot in the really bright green of spring growing into my new life and the new me day by day. That's pretty good. I loved teaching my staff member who was really willing to learn. I loved telling a meeting of 7 people it was okay to lower their expectations and just relax after I'd fired the most unmanageable person at work, because then they were all terrified. And I said, the rest of you are not on the edge. Just calm down. It's going to be okay. Just do your jobs. And everybody broke into a smile. I loved having, now this is a lady who just did physical tasks before. Nothing wrong with doing that. You know, welding, moving stuff, carrying stuff around. Now she's running the whole place. And so she's teaching employees, having a meeting of the employees. She said, I loved having a meeting with the board of directors. I just trusted and opened my brain to think of ways that we could help everybody achieve their goals instead of being driven by fear and protecting my own interests. I'm wondering where the old you has gone. Did they kill her and bury her? I mean, this is amazing. It's all good. The successes, the lessons, all of it. For the rest of us, notice that she said she's grateful for the mistakes she made, the successes she had, grateful for the whole deal. She says, I lost the good feeling for a while, and then I thought of how much I'm loved. Then I found the good feeling, and then I lost it again. And then I thought about being adored, and I found it again. And I finally got to group and asked for what I needed and went from 60 miles an hour in my head to 2 miles an hour in just a few minutes. And I'm feeling a clarity that I haven't seen for a long time, if ever. I can't wait for tomorrow's learning at work and everywhere else. And I'm already looking forward to telling people about my mistakes from today. What a beautiful blessing it is to be surrounded by all these teachers. And what she means by teachers for all of the rest of us is the board of directors, real love people, difficult employees, successes. Everything teaches us if we're listening. And she's listening. Here's somebody that says, last night at group, I shared that I had put on Facebook that I'd purchased a new car. And I had, pictures of it up on Facebook. A person that I've felt close to over the years made a comment that didn't feel good. And I expressed that to the group. I haven't cared what random people have thought much, but I definitely had expectations that my friend would be supportive and kind. Apparently she made a negative comment. And yeah, that does kind of make a difference when a friend criticizes you. Why does it make the difference? Because you had expectations of your friend. After stating this, she says, I was asked, well, why did I put this up on Facebook? Why did I put the pictures up? And I said, well, I don't know. I wasn't really sure. I didn't take any time to think about it. I just put them up there. I mean, it was my Facebook page. Then a conversation was begun about, was it to get attention for myself, and blah, 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 blah. And people started picking at her. Oh, you're getting your protecting behaviors, all that stuff. And she says, none of that felt good. And I felt myself shrinking and agreeing with them, because so many people were making comments that, yes, that must be why. So I found myself agreeing with them because they all made what sounded like reasonable comments. I felt like I did something wrong. Oh, honey, stop it. I can smell getting in protecting behaviors like rotten food from across the ocean. You got a new car. It's a big thing. It's a big decision that you made. And you were kind of proud of your decision. And you were showing people something that you were excited about. When people go on vacation, for example, which many people do every year, what do they always do? Always. They post pictures on their Facebook page. And then does everybody chime in with, well, I'm worried about your getting protecting behaviors, drawing attention to yourself. No, you just had a really great time and you're sharing it with your friends. They always post pictures. Did they do it for some evil reason? No, it's just excitement. It's just fun. You don't have to overanalyze every little thing you do. You continue. As I've had some time to process, I don't think it was about the attention. I was excited about getting the car, and I was proud I did it by myself and picked out what I wanted, not just what would work. And I was excited to post the pictures. There may have been some small part about the attention, but I don't think that was the main pull. And I don't think I was looking for approval. I could be wrong, because I often am. Nah, in this case, just enjoy being right. You were just having fun. You continue. I recall when I purchased my last car, how I didn't want to share with anybody at all what I'd done. I purchased a car that would work, but I didn't ask for any extra bells and whistles like I did this time. I remember feeling like I didn't want anybody to feel less than me because I had something new and they didn't. See how you made your decision out of fear? So you didn't post pictures last time. That was from fear. You did post pictures this time. People picked at you and you were just having fun. So just tell them to all shut up in your head and go away. This time I didn't want anybody to feel less than me either, but I was having fun. And she concludes with, what do you think? Put up some more pictures of your car. Take pictures of the inside. Lift the hood. Show them photos, close-ups of the carburetor. Actually, they don't have carburetors anymore, which shows how old I am. The electronic ignition, which I'm sure will fascinate everybody. This is from a man that I've come to know almost entirely by email. He said, I had my intervention just over 2 years ago, and my wife, Cindy, was very anti-real love and still maintains that general position. So clearly, I didn't do the intervention with him because I've only gotten to know him by email. The effect of real love on our family is pretty undeniable now, but she still refuses to accept that it has been a positive thing. And I can tell you, he's not making this up. He and his family have changed quite a bit. She has enjoyed the benefits of the change quite a bit, and yet she still fights real love. When people hear or see something radically different, like with your wife seeing real love, there are really only two choices that they can make. One, they can change and incorporate the new knowledge, which requires, oh my gosh, giving up the old lies. It requires changing your perspective. It requires different effort. It requires effort. Most people aren't willing to do that. I read something the other day, and it said, the truth and poetry are very much alike in people's minds. They hate them both. Nobody likes poetry. Nobody likes the truth. So people can change when they hear the truth. They don't usually do that because it's too much work. Or all they have to do is go, it's not the truth. Easy. I mean, that takes 2 seconds. Oh, I don't believe that. How many times have I seen that in my life? People start reading the Real Love book and they just go, I don't believe that. And they throw the book in the corner of the room. Well, I personally don't care. But how much effort did that take to dismiss the truth? People who say, well, you know, I'm skeptical. And these days, if they say it to me, like we said earlier, somebody whines and complains to me, they just invited me to a dialogue. When somebody says, I'm skeptical, I go, you mean you're lazy? Because being skeptical and saying, I don't believe, takes no effort at all. No trust, no faith, no effort, no change, no nothing. Just, I don't believe it. Lazy. So you can change, or you can discount the truth, ridicule it, or discount the people who are teaching it to you. Every once in a while, somebody emails me and says, oh, somebody just said something terrible about you on the internet. And I'm going, wow, that's just horrible. Since you could say anything you want to pretty much on the internet, there's always going to be people who are going to read true principles, and instead of incorporating them, they're going to say something bad about me. It's kind of flattering, actually. Because if they hadn't recognized the truth in it, they wouldn't have bothered to say negative things about me. If people say something about broccoli, they don't put it on the internet and go on and on about it. It's when it requires some change in their lives. Most spouses, however, do not do what your wife has done. In the last year, for example, I know a woman who did an intervention and her husband was very intellectually and emotionally against real love, like very much against. And he made disparaging comments and he went on and on. But eventually he said to her, I'm a scientist. He makes his living in the sciences. And even though there are some things about real love that I just don't agree with, he just has to say, but I'm my own person, you know, and I have to disagree with part of pretty much everything. He said, I can't deny the evidence. You're definitely happier and stronger and a better wife and a better mother and more fun to be around. And all of that started when you started implementing real love in your life. So I can't deny that it's helped you. But oddly, he continues to refuse to do anything with it himself. Although she catches him from time to time actually quoting out of the Real Love books and telling her how her behavior should conform to real love. So pretty funny. This person says, given the fact that the evidence is pretty overwhelming about his wife, would it be appropriate to take a stance with her like this? And he says, quote, the evidence of the positive effects of real love are pretty overwhelming now. So the only sensible conclusion is that now you're actually choosing to resist this just to be right. And while you maintain an openly resistant position, you're actually choosing to hurt not only yourself, but you're emotionally damaging our children. Yeah, that is a reasonable thing to say. And I've seen it work. When you tell somebody that they're continuing to deny the truth is hurting them and hurting their children, that is sometimes enough to get them at least stop criticizing. People find it harder to hang on to obvious lies when somebody exposes their lies and doesn't put up with them anymore. My guess would be that up to this point, when she has been critical, you've tried to be nice and just not had a confrontation with her. Sometimes that works, just being nice, and sometimes you actually have to face somebody in the middle of the street at high noon with a 6-gun. It's hard to tell lies when they're exposed, when they're labeled, when they're put out in the sun to be seen clearly by everybody. It becomes embarrassing enough that you just can't keep espousing untrue principles. Now, if you do this, your tone of delivery is critical. You have to be loving toward her. You can't have any tension or irritation. And you have to be genuinely concerned for your children, not to use them as a tool for manipulation, not just annoyed that she's being so stubborn. You say, in addition, she can still maintain an attacking position when I go to a real love event, for example. And I'm thinking that from now on, I might say something like this, quote, real love is imperative to the happiness of our family. The proof of that is everywhere and undeniable, no matter what you say. And you are actually now choosing to be blind to all of the progress and to be an obstruction with your attacking. And I don't especially enjoy it, end quote. I would go further. I would add, quote, considering the additional happiness that this has brought to our family, including you, I don't really ever want to hear a negative comment about my going to a real love event. Ever again. I don't want to hear it. Just like in your house, you get to say, I don't ever want to hear that vulgar word again, or I don't ever want to see you sneak a cigarette in the bathroom. I mean, airlines don't put up with it. Why should you? They fine you. I don't remember how much. If you smoke in the men's room, the room, it's not even really a room. To a guy my size, it's kind of like a half a closet. But I don't want to hear that anymore when I go to a thing. Now, I can't stop you from making such comments, but if you do make them, I will tell you that you're being a negative influence on the whole family and that you're being blind and determined to be right. Now, think about it. I don't make you go to real love events, not ever. I don't make negative comments about your staying home or not participating in real love. So why should you make fun of my beliefs? The whole family is going in a positive direction because of real love. And although I'm not making you get on the train, you could at least not pull everybody else backward. You could at least not put on the brakes. The kids feel your negative attitudes, and it's really not especially good for them. End quote. That's what I'd say. I'd go that far, because the only reason she keeps making these negative comments is because she's getting away with them. There's no negative consequence. And you're not going to take her cell phone from her or hit her. But the negative consequence is you're going to point out that she's being blind and obstructive. And she's not going to like hearing that. And pretty soon she's going to stop it. You conclude by saying, my biggest concern is making sure that I'm capable of coming from a place where this is for her, not me. For her and for the kids. So just keep that firmly in mind. And you might make a mistake or two, but you'll be okay. Here's somebody who says, I just finished reading the Real Love book yesterday, and I have to say I'm feeling an emotional high. I was born and grew up in Poland when it was under a communist system. Not a happy place. Goods and money were always in short supply, so everybody had to be extremely smart and what we called creative to simply survive. We had to steal, smuggle, cheat, and lie every single day of our lives just to live. This is the typical story of survival. Whether it's physical survival or emotional survival doesn't really make much difference. When we're drowning, we'll do anything. And whether it's ethically wrong, if our survival is sufficiently threatened, we don't care. She continues, since everybody was doing it, well then we just learned to be better at it than others. So our education, she says in quotes, started early. By the time I went to kindergarten, I already knew the endless lies, cheating, and stealing, and it all felt justifiable in order to get everything from toilet paper, food, gas, whatever. We never had enough. And to avoid thinking about the fact that we were lying and stealing, this is clever, we called it organizing stuff. Just like people who get angry at their family members don't call it anger. They say, I was not angry, I was just annoyed. So I didn't really steal this, I just organized it. From their house to my house. Survival really puts us in a different place, doesn't it? Especially when we learn it at an early age. This lady says by kindergarten, in this world of lots of food and other things, even though we're not struggling to physically survive, many of us, we still rename what we do. We're clever instead of manipulative. Instead of power hungry, we're just smart. Instead of referring to ourselves as selling sex for attention, we refer to ourselves as attractive or cute. See? We still do the same thing. We use nicer words for what we're really doing. She says, I learned to be bright and quick, and I was talented as a singer. When I won contests, I would get passes to what we called superstores, where the luxury items were found, like oranges, coffee, chocolate, that were sold only to the few privileged. I didn't need them. I sold what I bought to others, and to supplement my income, smuggled stuff over the border. I was a relative success. We accept so easily the definition of success that we are taught, don't we? So this girl learned to call success stealing, lying, cheating. We often train young girls to define success as being sexually attractive, and then we wonder why they get into trouble. We define success as winning praise, and then we wonder why women and men become addicted to work. She said, somehow, though, there was always something missing. I couldn't pinpoint it. I didn't understand it yet. At 23, I was in love, happily married, I thought, with a baby, still smuggling stuff over the border. But I started to question, why do we have to live this never-ending lie? I knew there was something wrong with it. It started to feel like such a burden. Yeah, deep down, you knew there was something wrong with this system of living. It wasn't just hard, it was wrong. But if there's no other choice visible, well, then you really can't make it, can you? Hence, the relative myth of free will until we are taught more choices and have the strength, moral, emotional, spiritual, to make them. You say, I finally went to the West for the first time and I saw the lie we were living. I actually read the Soviet policy for our country, for Poland, which said this: keep them hungry and barefoot so that they will fight the battle of satisfying the needs of their stomachs, and they will have no energy nor will to fight the system. End quote. It sends shivers down my spine to think how well this policy worked. And we all live with a similar lie all of our lives. We know we're in pain, but we're taught the lie that the only things that will dull our pain are what? The Soviets knew it was filling their bellies. We're taught that it's praise, power, pleasure, safety, money, sex. And we don't see the lie because everybody's doing it and because they all work temporarily. And we don't see any other choices. And our efforts in these areas really do occupy our lives, just like the Soviets occupied the lives of the Poles. She says, we went to the West, but we had to leave behind our 6-year-old son as security that we would return. That nearly killed me. It was 2 years before somebody was able to bring him to us where we had fled to Canada. Now, 30 years later, I can see how we can finally live the truth if we want it badly enough. And in this book, Real Love, I found a manual for living life truly and well. This is a lady who should know. The only way to live that truly makes sense. I wish it could become mandatory study material in school. Well, so do I. I wish that were true. We are so focused on success in school and careers and making money, but we teach our children so little about life. I was on the phone today with a 65-year-old man and loving him and teaching him. And he burst into tears and he said, I don't know what's happening, but I know it's changing my whole life. I don't know what to call it. And I said, you have a parent who is teaching you how to live well. He sobbed. He said, that's exactly what it feels like. This woman from Poland concludes by saying, God bless everybody associated with this message. Now, I will work to rid myself of these unloving behaviors I have. She didn't just read the book as an intellectual exercise. And I will exclude them from my life. And I believe I will find much greater happiness. Wow, what a letter, huh? The whole world just survives when there is so much more. So don't stop until you find it. And when you do, keep going, because it gets better and better and better and better. Here's somebody who says, my wife gets distant when she's afraid. If I try to talk to her, she gets more distant. So what do I do? Do I say, you're acting distant? I'm not criticizing or asking you to do anything different, but is there... Oh, sorry. He's not saying this. I'm saying this. He said, what do I do? I'm suggesting that he say, you're acting distant. I'm not criticizing or asking you to do anything different, but is there anything I can do to help? She might say, yes, but I don't know what it is. In other words, what it is that you can do to help. Then you say, I'll come back. She might say, no. There's nothing you can do to help. You still say, I'll come back. Because both of these are evidence of your caring about her. Now you have to talk about this ahead of time, and you have to trust each other. You have to trust, she has to trust you that you care about her. You have to trust her that when she says, I really don't know what you can do, that she means it. Or if she says, yeah, there is something you can do, but I don't know what it is, that she means it. And you come back until you figure it out. You have to trust the speaker that they're sincere about not criticizing. You have to trust the withdrawer when they say, no, there's nothing you can do. You just don't give up. New subject. I know a lady who has been in serial relationships for years and years. And each one has lasted a few years. And they always end, and she's very bitter about each breakup. He should have done this, and he should have done that. And I want a sense of resolution about this. Each time there's a breakup, she wants a sense of closure. Or she'll say, well, but he never explained why. And in other words, every time a relationship breaks up, she wants it to break up and be put in a lovely box and wrapped with Christmas paper and tied with a bow. Finally, an explanation worked. I went over again with her why her latest relationship hadn't worked. And I said, you expect any given person you're with to meet your standards of civility, reciprocation, kindness, gratitude, sensitivity, everything. And the more you invest in a relationship, because each relationship goes several years, the more you expect. Of course, you don't tell them the more you expect, but you are expecting more. And then you discover they never had what you wanted in the first place. And then you're enraged that they could be so inconsiderate as to take your love and sensitivity, but not return it. So what's the solution? Because she agreed that that's what she does. Instead of expecting people to meet your standards, just establish standards. Never expect a given person to meet your standards. Just establish standards for a mutually loving, exclusive relationship and observe them and see whether they're capable of meeting them. It's much easier. It's much faster. It respects their choices, and you're much more likely to find what you want, as opposed to doing what you do, which is find somebody that you like and then impose your expectations on that particular person, which you've already proven, like 100 times doesn't work. Here's somebody who says, this looks long. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to do that next time because it is long. Here's somebody who says, I know that you have mentioned all these things before, but I just put them together in a way that I hadn't seen before. People can get several different things out of beating themselves up. 1, saying something negative about themselves prevents anybody else from doing it, since it's already been done by you. If they beat themselves up and look pathetic enough, they get a kind of free pass and don't have to be responsible. We tend not to hold people responsible when they generate enough sympathy. We don't want to make them feel bad. And third, drama. Most people don't feel alive. So they hurt themselves and feel more alive, much like cutters. This person continues. This person is just distilling things that they've heard in video chats and read in books all over the place. Also, wouldn't a drama addiction explain gambling addiction? They always lose more than they win, and they love the drama of the bad losses. Yes, addictions are everywhere. Any behavior or any substance that is used to temporarily dull our pain, sometimes with drama, sometimes with attention, sometimes with pleasure, with praise, with whatever, and interferes with our long-term happiness or with our long-term relationships, and we can't easily give it up, that is an addiction. And most of us have 7 or 8 or 10 or 20 of them all jumbled up, so it's hard even to dissect out the individual addictions and name them. Turns out it's not all that important to dissect them out. What matters is that we do what we've talked about many, many times. We find the unconditional love that we need in our lives. We trust it. We remember it. And we learn to share it with other people. And if we do that, we'll experience happy and full lives, like this lady from Poland says she's now committed to do. It's a guarantee. It follows the laws of happiness, which are as reliable as the physical laws, like gravity. Try it. It works. We'll see you next week.